The FBI released some new data on hate crimes, and they reported the highest ever increase, reported single bias, anti-Jewish hate crimes, the highest ever last year. And although Jews make up about 2% of the U.S. population, the reported single bias anti-Jewish hate crimes comprise 16% of all reported hate crimes. Folks, this is just incredible in the statistics here. So how should we as Christians respond to all of this? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Bible teacher and best-selling author Joel Richardson. Joel, welcome back to Washington Watch. We deeply appreciate you coming on.
Cody, thanks for having me on.
All right, so what do you make of this rise in anti-Semitism here in the U.S. and around the world?
So obviously we're seeing like actual hate crimes. We're seeing violent attacks. We saw that young couple literally just murdered in cold blood in Washington a few months ago. But far beyond that, beyond the hate crimes, it's the national discourse. You know, we've seen people who were just recently, darlings of the right. We're not talking about radical leftists. We're talking about people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, who they're going off the rails, embracing not just mild forms of criticism of Israel or this type of thing, but embracing full-blown, like some of the most lurid, base, ridiculous, like disproven, intellectually bankrupt forms of anti-Semitism. And these are the influencers, you know, Joe Rogan, the single most listened to podcaster in the world, hosting historians who are literally entertaining the idea that Hitler was the good guy of World War II and Churchill was the bad guy. And we have a whole generation right now of young people who are embracing this. So the reality is, even what we're looking at right now, the data, the FBI data from 2024, I don't see that going away. I believe it's going to get a lot worse.
So let's try to dive into this, Joel. What's behind it? What is driving this whole hatred? Is anti-Semitism? What is behind it all?
Look, it was Jesus himself who said, you know, all nations will hate you because of my name. And Christians debate that. It's from the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. They go, well, he was talking to Jews, he was talking to Christians. But the context of what he was talking about was a time of unparalleled tribulation, specifically in Israel, in Judea. And so this is the fulfillment of the words of Jesus. This is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. So what's behind it is Satan. It's very simple. The Lord has a plan of redemption. He has chosen to put his son on Mount Zion to rule the nations. And Satan wants the throne of David. And so he's going after God's people. That is what's behind it.
So what do you say to the person who, a professing believer, or not, let me just say, what do you say to the person that says there's a difference between the Israel of the Bible and the Israel political state today? Why should we care? Why should we be concerned with what's happening in Israel today?
Well, first of all, it's a foolish statement. It's the same people. It's the descendants of the people in the first century. It's the same piece of land, same people, same piece of property. The Lord's covenant to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the children of Israel was everlasting. I will give you this piece of land. So the suggestion that it's not, I mean, of course, it's thousands of years later, but it is Israel. And look, just take the Bible and set it aside for a moment. Just last week, 5 minutes up the street from my house, 5 minutes walking distance, there was an individual out on the street corner with a Palestinian flag. And I live in a very affluent Midwestern suburb of Kansas. And he was out there. I filmed him literally screaming that he's going to destroy every single blanking Jew, every one of, reported to the FBI. What we are called right now as Christians to do is be good neighbors. And so we can talk about the theology and the ideas that are behind this hatred, the bad theology that leads to the mistreatment of the Jewish people, as it has throughout literally all of Christian history. But right now it's time to be good neighbors. And as you said, the hate crimes in the United States against Jews is disproportionate. The Lord calls us as his followers to stand with the poor, the downtrodden, the persecuted, the hated, the marginalized, the little ones. That is always the central issue on God's heart. And so right now it's time for Christians to stand up and be good neighbors and also provide intelligent theological responses to a lot of the nonsense that is just exploding out there.
Sounds like what you're describing is something that needs to be spearheaded in the churches across America and the church leaders of this country, who tend to shy away from, oftentimes, from items that are highlighted in the news to begin with. But this is a biblical issue very clearly. What would you say to pastors right now by way of encouragement for them to step up and teach and train their congregants as to what a Christian response ought to be towards the Jewish community right now?
So pastors and teachers, first of all, they need to educate their people. When we as a community try to interact with the Jewish community, they're often very, very leery, very suspicious, with good reason. We have to acknowledge the long history of, quite frankly, the blood on our hands as Christians, whether we identify with the kind of Christians, the denomination of Christians that did these things. Jews don't know the difference. They just say, your people did this to my family and my people. So we begin with repentance. That's a very legitimate, necessary first step to a healthy relationship. And we need as pastors to educate our people. The majority of the pulpits today are not going deep. It's shallow, surfacey, self-therapeutic sermons, and the people are not equipped. And those that are, unfortunately, again, the church is divided. It's split right down the middle. Those that are embracing replacement theology, supersessionism, these ideas, once you believe and teach that God is no longer done with this people, God's mad at this people, it's his will that they're dispersed among the nations, then it's very logical. It's very logical for you to say, well, if I'm a servant of God, then I should treat them harshly as well. And that was exactly the logic of Martin Luther, so many other Christian theologians. So we need to educate our people. The Jewish community is very well aware of how we've mistreated them, but most Christians are oblivious to it. And this sort of historical selective memory or amnesia is something that needs to be addressed.
In about 30 seconds or so that we have left before I need to wrap up, to those who are not pastors, but just Christians who are listening, watching you right now, how can they pray with their families, with their friends, to start moving the hearts of others in this arena?
Look, I think by bridge building, we can pray for our neighbors. But I think it's by bridge building, by getting in front of people face to face, eye to eye, and building relationships so that they're not just theoretical, that they're our neighbors, and build those relationships, because those are the things that survive when the storms come. Relationships just theoretically online, that's not going to do it. It's going to have to be much more real and substantial.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Bible teacher and best-selling author Joel Richardson. We appreciate you so much coming on the program. God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks so much, Jody.